how to help your coworkers feel respected. And today we are going to cover 3 objectives. First, we're going to take a look at why peer-to-peer respect matters more than ever before in your workplace culture and in your agency. Secondly, we're going to learn what a respect cadence is and how you can build one. And then thirdly, we are going to go over 4 ways that we can show how we respect our coworkers. So let's jump right in to objective 1. All right, so objective 1 is explore why peer-to-peer respect matters. So you might be thinking, well, hey, doesn't everybody deserve respect? And the answer to that is yes, but not necessarily in the same way, because you see, there are 2 types of respect. The first one is called owed respect. And this is the baseline level of respect that everyone deserves. All people deserve owed respect, and it is what we give to valued people and members of our workplace. Cues of owed respect are things like signals of civility. So when you support employee policies, work environments that value all members, so valuing input and being receptive to it. So we typically think of owed respect as something that is infinite. Again, everybody gets that. Everyone can feel respected as a valued member of the workforce. The second type of respect is earned respect. And this is for meeting or exceeding work expectations. Cues of earned respect include things like a promotion or an award, public praise. So this is going above and beyond. And we typically think of earned respect as finite. We allocate it based on individual respect-worthy performances. So 2 kinds of respect. You might also think, well, aren't appreciation, respect, praise, aren't they all the same thing? And the answer is, well, sort of. They're in the same family, but they're more like cousins rather than siblings. So appreciation and praise, they convey a sense of gratitude for someone's efforts, their attitude, character, and support. And they are certainly examples of earned respect. But you don't necessarily have to appreciate someone to respect them. If you have children, I'm sure you have probably had them come to you and say, I don't like Mrs. Rake at school. Well, you say to I'm sure most of you said to your student or your kids, hey, you don't have to like Mrs. Rake, but you do have to respect her, right? Or you might dislike an elected official, but you still have respect for the office that they hold, right? So we have appreciation versus respect, and that's the difference. This distinction is incredibly important in the workplace because we might not like everyone equally that we work with. But again, they do deserve our respect, our owed respect. And as humans in general, the earned respect that comes when there is a contribution to the mission. The effects of respect, though, they extend far beyond our interpersonal relationships. Respect matters to our organization as well. And back in 2022, the Pew Research Center, they did a survey of 10,000 working adults. And they asked them, why did you leave your job? These were folks that left their jobs, and they wanted to know why. So they came up, what I'm going to share with you here is the top 3 reasons that people left their jobs in 2021. So Pew Research found that the first reason was low pay at 63%. Coming in second, just by a nose there, low advancement of opportunities. And then coming in third, again, very closely, feeling disrespected at work, 57%. So here we might be kind of asking ourselves the question, why has something suddenly made respect so important to retention? When did that happen? And if you're thinking that, you're not alone. After reading the Pew Research study, 3 managers at 3 different universities who study research workplace respect, they decided they wanted to look into this a little bit more, and they designed a smaller survey to find out more about Why is this stuff happening? Why are people leaving their jobs? Why is this disrespect in the workplace? What's up, right? So they published their findings in an article that was published by the University of California at Berkeley. And their findings are what leads us into our second objective. What a respect cadence is and how we can build one. Look, what is the cadence in the way that we're going to discuss it here? So without throwing a dictionary at you, various definitions share these traits: regularity, rhythm, and repetition. All right, so if you've ever had a day where everybody is just pulling together, they're anticipating needs before anyone asks, that is what a cadence is all about. It's just falling into a rhythm that works for everyone. And author Christy Rogers, who was one of the writers that contributed to this source, she notes that when thinking about a respect cadence, it comes down to the foundation of repeated, respected interactions. So most of you said that, consistency, repetition. So repeated, respected interactions. When we want to stop and think about how do we do this with our coworkers, or how do we build this one-on-one, well, how does it play out? What do we do? So got some ideas for you. Let's check it out. First thing is, there has to be understanding. Both you and your coworker have to agree on understanding how each of you wants to be valued. Next, there has to be some predictability. Both of you should be able to predict the ways that you show respect to each other. And for these two things to happen, the understanding and the predictability, you both bear a responsibility for clearly communicating how you want to be valued, regularly valuing each other according to those preferences. The third one here, consistency. And consistency is critical for two reasons. First, when we're thinking about, maybe we have some geographical distancing. Maybe we have Google Meets, like what we're doing today. We're having a live virtual meeting. And this can kind of pose some issues for developing a cadence. It's going to be a little bit more difficult when we don't see people regularly, when meetings are a little bit more sporadic. So keep that in mind. That's going to kind of mess up the consistency and the predictability. But when you do have what Rogers calls a respect account, when your respect account is stocked up, it helps you because maybe you do something that's perceived as disrespectful. If you do, then your coworker is more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt and even maybe feel more comfortable coming to you and saying, hey, this thing happened, right? Because you have that account built up. And like Rogers explained to us, this is the notion of a respect cadence. Again, that repeated, respectful interactions. So cadence. Grab a little slip of paper, Post-it note, just something, a little tiny piece of paper, and just answer me this question real quick. And we're going to do something with it here in a few minutes. So the question is, when have I felt respected by my colleagues? So if you can think of maybe 1, 2 examples, if you can come up with 3, fantastic, right? But, just if you can just jot that down on a little piece of paper for a minute and hold on to it for a little bit later. I'll give you a few minutes to think about it. Our next objective, objective 3, which is our final objective, is going to be reviewing 4 ways that we can show respect to our coworkers. And it's one thing, like we said earlier, to know that we need to respect each other. We all know that, but then sometimes we're not always sure how. All right, so let's look at some ways of how we can do it. The first one is we're going to talk about respecting the value of what each other do. Then we're going to look at respecting individual job performance. We can show how we respect our coworkers by respecting their autonomy. And then lastly, by respecting their struggles. So let's get into these in a little bit more detail. Respecting the value of what they do. So the authors of that Berkeley study, they suggested that there was a shift when there was a shift in the hybrid schedules and all of that back early in the pandemic days, that this increased that whole idea of out of sight, out of mind. And this made it more important than ever to validate coworkers, even the ones that we no longer see, whether they're working in a remote office or we're having live virtual meetings, Google Meets, whatnot. It was really important to validate each other. The authors also confirmed the supervisors and peers should communicate the value, that word's underlined and bolded, the value of what others in the unit contribute. So, how do you do that? How do you communicate and show the value? So, let's look at a few examples. You can have a unit agency brag board. So, this can be physical somewhere in your office that people put up, customer reviews that are positive, notes of appreciation. Yes, hey, so and so did a great thing for me, and you put up a little note or whatever. If you have various team members that are, again, geographically distanced, or you have people that work in and out of different offices, remote offices, and maybe they're not always in all the time. You can totally recreate the same thing using a Google Doc, add your brag, make sure you're letting people know they did a great job. Or you can do what we do here at OHRM. We have a little email system called Compliment a Colleague. You can send in an anonymous compliment about something a colleague did so that everybody hears about it and gives them a little wahoo, yay, you're awesome. So taking the time to remind each other that you understand the value of their efforts, this can really go a long way. Don't underestimate the value of these small little things you do. Don't underestimate the value of just being somebody that says, hey, you need somebody to listen? Or here's a cute little plastic duck I found and it matches your outfit today. Whatever goofy thing it might mean. Don't underestimate that, because a lot of times that can mean so much more to people than you might realize. And there's author Eric Kopinski. He calls these little tiny things like listening and just noticing, like maybe somebody changed their hair today or something. He calls these micro moments. And other ways that we can look at micro moments, or create them rather, are by doing things like just making eye contact with people, putting your phone away when you're having a conversation, listening to understand before you respond, not interrupting. I think Linda said that one, not interrupting. It's so important and makes you feel so good to know that someone's just listening to what you have to say. And that's all. I am going to give you a little taste of some of the 7 ways that you can use micro moments to improve connections. One of the first ones, and I am going to pause on this one just to make sure everybody understands what this means. Be intentional. Get into connection mode at the start of the day. So go in, get off the elevator and say, okay, I've got that mindset. This is what I'm going to do today. Convey your presence to people. Let people know you're there. Come out of your shell a little bit if you're somebody who's a little shy. Ask more, tell less. Create opportunities for connections in your meetings. Sometimes we get so bogged down with all the business, we forget to connect. So make those connections. Focus on things that are positive. I mean, we all know that the world has enough gloomy stuff in it that we can stop for 5 minutes and go, well, hey, did you see that the clouds today look like they were stars and hearts? And come on, we can focus on some positive things. And then make space for difficulties, because yes, we're all human. And while there are ups, there are also downs. During the pandemic, especially in those early days, it wasn't easy for supervisors, managers to give specific individual, gratitude in a sense. They weren't used to being away from their people. And so when you're not used to being away from your people, in some cases, you didn't really, you're not able to observe what they're doing necessarily. So in some cases, it was possible that feedback became a little less specific, maybe because, again, supervisors didn't have that same firsthand observation experience. And Rogers explains in her article that comments were likely to be more general, more expressions of just appreciation in the sense of like, hey, you're just doing a good job, the team's doing a good job, right? So many of you may have experienced that. But when we go back to that study at Berkeley, in their survey, they said They wanted to acknowledge work being done as it is being done. And I think that makes sense, doesn't it? Additionally, the respondents also said that they wanted to show respect at a specific individual level. So that's important, a specific individual level. So you might be thinking, well, I'm not a manager. That's a manager's job. That's what they do. Well, it is, but here's the thing. These respondents, remember, I told you it was over 10,000 people. These respondents, they said that it actually means more when they hear it from their peers. When they get a comment on their job performance, it is actually more meaningful, A, because it's not expected, and then B, because their peers can sometimes relate more to the challenges that they're having, more so than a supervisor or a manager can relate to. Continuing to discuss this Berkeley study, again, they described that trust is the ultimate sign of respect. And they said that they want both their peers and their supervisors, again, the respondents said this, they want their peers and their supervisors to trust that they are working hard. And we all want that, don't we? We all want somebody, our supervisors, to know that we're working hard, we're giving it our best effort. So you may not always see your coworkers face to face. And sometimes, though, when we don't see people's work being done, it might make us question if it is being done. But keep this in mind, that a coworker and a supervisor, sometimes they might have created a schedule that doesn't necessarily align with your own. And it's important that you respect their autonomy to do that. Show members of your team that you respect their autonomy by trusting that they will get their work done and contribute in ways that work not only for you, but also for them. But when we think about that variation, it also applies to our coworkers. And the fourth way that we need to show respect to our coworkers is by respecting their struggles. So it's not uncommon, many things happen outside of the world that we can't control. So when we're worried about mom who's home and she needs to get her medicine, or maybe your kid had to stay home from school today because they were ill, all of these things, sometimes when you're trying to come to work and concentrate, your brain's not quite at work. And so based on what we've just observed here, we can see how it's important that we show compassion and respect for each other as humans, rather than, as one respondent said, just being work robots, right? We're not robots, we have feelings. So when a coworker is struggling with something difficult, any of these things which people have listed here, death in a family, struggles with their parents, taking care of elderly folks, any of these things. When somebody's feeling down, forcing the conversation to be positive, sometimes that can kind of come off as insensitive. So sometimes the best thing to do is just, again, empathy, compassion, and like many people said earlier, listen, just listen. And understand that you don't have to solve the issue, you don't have to fix it. Just listening and showing that you're available is very powerful. Any conversation can become a micro moment. And as long as you're connecting and you're fully present and you're actively listening, that's going to mean a whole lot more to people than maybe buying them a big gift or other grand gestures. Here at Employee Development, we rely on Gallup for a lot of great information. Have most of you heard of Gallup organization? This little tidbit of information here, it should leave you smiling. Gallup reports that the first time in a decade, in 2023, the world was in a better place. Negative emotions dropped and positive emotions completed their rebound. So this popped up in my email a few weeks ago, and it just was so neat. I was like, what a cool thing. And I just wanted to add it to our discussion to show you that it is because of respecting your peers, showing empathy, concern, and kindness that reports like this reflect the positive and not the negative. Before we close today, let's review our objectives one more time to make sure that we've touched on everything. So we began by exploring why peer-to-peer respect is so important. Yay, we did that. We talked about what a respect cadence is and how to build one. So if you don't have one, hey, work on it. If you do have one, keep at it. All right. And then lastly, we reviewed 4 ways to show respect to our coworkers. So now I would like for you to take that little piece of paper that you wrote on. You wrote down 4 ways, or you wrote how you felt respected by a coworker. So now you should see 4 ways. They're on the screen. And so try to match it up. Which one of those is demonstrated with what you wrote down? And when we realize the origins of respect that we receive, where it's coming from, then we begin to become more aware of the ways that we can do the same things for other people. So that's like super special. Embracing a more human-centric approach to work involves listening to others, recognizing that changes, whether they were pandemic-related changes, changes in the agency itself, physical, structural changes, events that are beyond any of our control, they're going to impact the worth, how people feel about contributing to their workforce, employees and members of our humanity even. So think about what you can do to reinforce the positive respect cadence that you've built and help coworkers and your team and organization be psychologically safe. The great thing about respect is it is abundant and it is free. When you think about findings at the Pew Research, it's kind of concerning, yes, but the good news is that all it takes is small changes to your own behavior to make your coworkers feel better and make a big difference in how respected they feel.